Hi, Kelly.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. We are back with another installation of today's extended distributed telethon for Giving Tuesday. I am joined now by Salon Fellow Kelly Jensen. She's one of the OG fellows from the San Francisco chapter, and she's going to be talking a little bit about local architect Julia Morgan, who's a super mover and shaker in Bay Area architecture, but also whose style has influenced all kinds of things. I'm also a fan, so we will be having a little bit of a convo about it after she talks. We, on the Giving Tuesday side of things, we are now holding at a little over $11,000. We're at $11,064. We have reached the putting whiskey in our tea portion of the festivities today. We're going to continue going. Our last live stream is not until 11 p.m. So you still have time. You can totally pause and wait to give, but we'd really like to see us get to over 12,000 in the next hour. So if you're thinking about re-upping a membership, if you're thinking about throwing in 20 bucks, if you like what we do, if you'd like to help support stories like the ones that we put up today and the ones that we're going to be bringing to the stage in December at Oddments, please follow the link below. It is wrong way, so difficult. bit.ly/oddgiving. And you can throw us some donations of any amount in that space, and we will be eternally grateful to you for doing so. So before we get started with Julia Morgan, Kelly, I want to ask you the question that we've been asking everyone today, which is, what weird thing did you learn during the pandemic?
I learned a lot of weird things about birds. Like, I can tell the difference between the little brown birds now. I'm like, oh, that's a house sparrow as opposed to a white crowned sparrow. And you can tell by their distinctive dialect. So, yeah,
By the peeping?
I got bird nerdy. That's good. That was my deal.
I'm still trying to tell, like, crows from ravens when they're flapping around. And
oh, you can. It's another thing I learned. You can tell by the shape of their tail. Crows' tails are shaped like diamonds.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Ravens' tails are shaped like diamonds, and crows' tails are round like a fan.
Okay. I know those, like, that factoid, but I can never remember which one it is that is which. I'm like, oh, you can tell by the shape of the tail.
Diamonds are rare. That's how I remember it. Diamonds are more rare, and you see ravens less often.
Oh, okay. That's a good tip. Pro tip. Okay. So, Kelly, tell us a little bit to start with. I'm gonna hand it over to you, but start by telling us a little bit about how you got to know about Julia Morgan and how you began your nerdy journey into knowledge about her.
So I actually learned about Julia Morgan from my dad because he took me to a play at the Berkeley Playhouse, which was originally St. John's Presbyterian Church in Berkeley, and now it's the Berkeley Playhouse, and it was designed by Julia Morgan, and my dad, to his credit, pointed out that it was designed by Julia Morgan, who was this kick-ass female architect. I do not believe he used the term kick-ass. But yeah, that was how I learned about her. And then growing up in California, you go to Hearst Castle as a field trip, and Hearst Castle is the most absurdly opulent, giant place you've ever seen. And she designed that with William Randolph Hearst, and they worked on it, or she worked on it at least for 29 years. So it is absurd. But anyway, so Julia Morgan is California's first female architect. She was the first woman graduate in civil engineering from UC Berkeley in 1894, I believe, and went on to design something like 700 buildings during her career. And she designed buildings at Mills College, UC Berkeley, Hearst Castle. Obviously, she did a lot of YWCA buildings in California because she was part of the California women's movement, that kind of first wave feminism, a lot of community involvement. And she was one of the most successful female architects because she was able to get her career off the ground at all because she understood reinforced concrete. Because after the 1906 earthquake in San Francisco, when everything burned down, they had to rebuild the city. And because she had graduated from the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris, she knew about reinforced concrete and was one of the only people in California who did understand it. So she got hired a lot because she knew about how to rebuild the city, and because she was female and you didn't have to pay her very much, which is a downer. But yes, what she is most known for is Hearst Castle, which was William Randolph Hearst's absurd giant palace in San Simeon, California. And he brought over all kinds of absurd things from Europe, like the whole roof of a medieval church, for example. Just put it in the house over there. So he would bring back all this crazy stuff, and Julia had the job of incorporating it into his house, which I believe he initially described as like, I'm going to build a little bungalow on my ranch in San Simeon, and it turned into this massive, huge, ridiculous mansion. And she also designed Chapel of the Chimes in Oakland, California, which is the columbarium that's attached to Mountain View Cemetery. The columbarium being where ashes are stored if you're cremated. So it's different than the other variety of cemetery. And she is, in fact, buried in Mountain View Cemetery. She's not buried in Chapel of the Chimes, which is odd. She's buried in Mountain View Cemetery. And I think, Annetta, you and I have been to her grave in Mountain View.
I think we have. We have definitely explored at Chapel of the Chimes together. It's one of my absolute favorite architectural places in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
I think, Trey, do we have a picture of the interior of Chapel of the Chimes? I think we grabbed one. Yeah. So the thing that's really extraordinary about it that I love the most is that it feels like you're walking through this extraordinary open air library. For reasons that I think are obscure that maybe you know, the books in that urns in that section are shaped like books, and set in their niches on end. And I've never seen that anywhere else.
I haven't seen it anywhere else. And I know there's sort of a reference to like the book of your life being recorded in heaven or something like that. I'm paraphrasing or possibly making things up.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of that there, and it is very much like a library. It's very cool.
I mean, maybe there was just like a local person who specialized in making weird book-shaped urns, and they were like, "We will give you the contract."
Yeah, it's entirely possible.
Yeah, but for anybody who's local, it used to be an Oakland Key Station, which was the local light rail that we have, for reasons that are obscure as an Oakland resident, gotten rid of completely. But the very center part of the columbarium, it's up against a hill, and the very center part is this old train station, and it has penny tile floors, and it has this sort of like kind of lackluster Victorian thing. And then you go one section out, and there is this Spanish Moorish labyrinth that Julia Morgan designed around it, that goes up into the hillside, full of tiny rooms and winding corridors, and gardens and birds.
Fountains.
Yeah.
There used to be goldfish in the fountains. There are not anymore, but there are still birds because there's a bequest, I think, that keeps canaries at Chapel of the Chimes. Yes. Although people occasionally let them out.
Liberate them.
This is apparently a thing.
I mean, I feel like we could fix the goldfish problem, but they might not be long for the world.
Could. I mean, goldfish, they either just die or they're unkillable. So you get the unkillable variety, and we
could give it a shot.
Feral goldfish in Chapel of the Chimes.
I think it's really odd that she's not buried in this absolutely spectacular, beautiful building that she designed.
Yeah.
Do you know? So do you have any idea?
She's in a family plot. So the plot was there, and she didn't want a big fancy gravestone, a big fancy marker. Her whole thing was that her buildings would be her legacy and they would speak for themselves. And she said something really lovely about, like, I've been trying to remember the quote all day and I can't find it, but it was something like, when it's time for me to go, put me quietly to bed. And so like, she didn't want a big fancy fanfare. And so she's in this very, very, she's in a family plot, and the gravestone is very, very plain. It has like 10 other names on it. And they're her brothers and her nieces, and generally just her family.
Yeah.
Although she did design a couple of gravestones that are in Mountain View Cemetery, and they are beautiful, like that kind of arts and crafts style.
Next time we're there to check.
Yeah. Ayer and Hockenbeamer, I think, are the names.
Okay. Hockenbeamer. That's a good one.
I think that's right.
So for those of you who aren't local to Oakland, Mountain View Cemetery is the only local, like, monumental cemetery left in the Bay Area, because we moved all of the cemeteries at the turn of the century. And it's where we've got the railroad barons. Crocker has his giant sort of phallic monument at the top of the hill, and there's a billionaire's row with there's a pyramid. There's 2 pyramids, one down low,
Yeah,
one up
there's
high.
a few pyramids in there, but I think there's 2 on Billionaire's Row.
Yeah. And it's an absolutely beautiful cemetery. It's totally worth exploring if you have not made your way there. I think they're still only open 2 days a week.
Designed by Frederick Law Olmsted, yes? The designer of Central Park?
I think so. I think you are correct. I think you are correct. But it's totally beautiful. So one of the things I was thinking about is one of my other favorite sort of arts and crafts era architects of the era is Bernard Maybach. And he and Julia Morgan sort of have, Julia Morgan did more of a, I think this is William Randolph.
Oh yeah, that's Hearst.
That's Hearst and Morgan. That's okay. That's them hanging out, planning things. That his style veers like a little bit towards like Japanese influences and some other things, and hers more towards the Spanish Moorish and tile. But there's this intersection between their 2 styles that are very distinctive, and you see all over Berkeley and Oakland, in these beautiful houses and these beautiful public buildings, and they were connected.
Yes, he was her professor at Berkeley when she was studying civil engineering, and he encouraged her to go to the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris, where he went. So she went off to Paris and started studying for the exam. She got there in 1896, but they didn't accept women until 1897. So she had to hang around Paris waiting and doing the prepping for the exam. And then when they finally accepted her, it turned out that they didn't allow students older than 30 to study, and she was already 27. So she had to do her degree in 3 years while Maybach had to do his in 5.
Wow.
So yeah, she kicked ass at the École des Beaux-Arts. And I think she was one of the first 30 women admitted there.
I wonder which one of them ended up designing more buildings, because Julia Morgan's number, it's like 700 buildings, is just extraordinary. It's that's crazy. Not a normal number of projects.
No, that's working really, really hard for a very, very, very long number of years. Yeah. She actually worked, I want to say she got her license in 1904 and she worked until 1951. So she had a pretty long career, and she did a decent amount of, she donated her services sometimes, especially to the YWCA. And so you can probably design more if you're not charging anything. Right. Doesn't necessarily work out for you in the end, but
the Berkeley Women's Building was designed by her as well, which is adorable.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, and Trey just said, and so was the Sausalito Women's Building, which I didn't realize.
And the San Luis Obispo Women's Building. She did a lot of women's buildings.
Yeah. Very beautiful architecture.
Yes.
Oh, and there's a Julia Morgan ballroom in San Francisco.
I don't know about that one. I know about a church somewhere in the Excelsior, I think.
All right, we're going to dig up links and we're going to put it in the comments under this amazing video when we archive it on the Facebooks. So my last question is, so she designed Hearst Castle. This is her like monumental, most famous project with William Randolph Hearst. But he had another project. He was going to redesign his mom's like fancy country house that's like up in Northern California somewhere, Phoebe Hearst's place.
Yes, Wintun, I believe.
And he went and bought an entire Spanish monastery in order to make like fancy Spanish monastery building at Wintun, and it was ill-fated. I think it got caught up in the Depression and never got built. But we were just talking, about the fate of the monastery stones?
Yes, so they were in crates, I think. Like they had packed up all of the stones in crates. Hearst went through a rough patch and they ended up being donated or being bought by the city of San Francisco. And then the crates caught on fire, and the instructions on how to rebuild the whole thing were on the crates. So they were left over. So they had a bunch of stones and they didn't know how to assemble them. And so you will find them kind of scattered around Golden Gate Park. There's a decent number in the Botanical Garden. There's some behind the Academy of Sciences where Monarch the Bear's cage used to be. Mm-hmm. So if you see blocks of white stone around Golden Gate Park, they are probably part of that monastery.
Yeah, they're definitely all through the Botanical Garden.
Yeah. But a group of, is it Capuchin monks or Cistercian monks? Whatever that, Cistercian. Yeah. They bought the stones and took them up to, I want to say Vina, California.
It's near
and
Sacramento.
reconstructed it. So they have part of a reconstruction of that monastery. It's up near Reading.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
We will also find a link to that. Okay, so I think we are wrapping up on time.
All right.
So if you had any other factoids, I know we were a little, you were jumping ahead and suggesting that you were going to give us facts about Julia Roberts before we went to this. But do you have any other facts about Julia Morgan that you would like to drop before we head out?
It's not really about her. It's just like, no, she never had any romantic relationships. My personal slash pick for her would be the muralist that she used to work with, whose name was Doris Day, and who carried a parrot named Nikki on her shoulder. Nice. So I just think that's a really cute couple.
That is a cute couple. Yeah.
None of my business.
Yeah. All right. I think we're going to wrap up. Kelly, we're going to throw up our Giving Tuesday donation link. Do you have a few words you'd like to say of encouragement to people considering?
I do. I chipped in today. Finally, for a change. I have a good job this year. So I'm really excited about being able to give, because these are I didn't know I had people until I met the folks at Odd Salon, and then I was like, oh shit, these are my people. These are my people. And so some of my favorite friends are from Odd Salon, and I always learn the best things from everybody. I have the best conversations with everyone. So the people really are the reason that I want to keep this going, because everyone's awesome, man. That's my deal. So give the money over there. It's
Thank you, Kelly. I totally agree. The people are, in fact, the best part of this project, with a side of good stories and weird facts. Yeah,
agreed.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to wrap up this session. We will be back in just a few minutes at 8 p.m. Sorry, 7:30. At 7:30.
Oh, that's so soon.
A little bit less than 15 minutes. With new to Odd Salon fellow coming to us from the East Coast, Priscilla Millard. She is an archaeologist, and her expertise is vampire burials. Very special, very kind of complicated and often hyperbolic thing reported in the press. And we are going to do a Q&A with her and ask her for all of the gory details and true facts. So join us at 7:30 for that session here on either YouTube or on the Facebooks, wherever it is that you happen to be hanging out. We'll see you then. So thanks, Kelly.
Thanks.